You, a janitor, play this piano? Don't embarrass yourself in front of everyone.
The cruel laughter explodes before the echo of her words can fade. Crystal glasses clink, polished shoes tap against marble floors. The grand lobby of the Langford Hotel glitters under chandeliers like a stage set for the wealthy of New Orleans. Tonight was supposed to be their playground, a weekend gala of power, money, and pride. One black janitor, one rich woman, one piano gleaming in the center of the room. What began as a scheme to humiliate him would soon flip the entire night upside down, shattering egos and silencing every whisper. You won't believe how he turned judgment into thunderous applause, with nothing but his music. She stands there, Victoria Langford, a wealthy white businesswoman in her late 40s. Her golden curls shine beneath the chandelier, her diamond necklace throwing shards of light across the polished walls. Her black evening gown glitters, but it's her voice, sharp, cold, dripping with superiority, that cuts the deepest. Across from her, holding a mop still damp from cleaning the marble floor, stands Luther Harris, a man in his late 40s, tall, broad-shouldered, with warm brown skin and a face lined not by age but by endurance. His rough hands are still dusted with gray. His eyes, steady and unwavering, carry the quiet fire of a man who has endured humiliation before and survived it. Victoria smirks, turning to her guests, men in tailored suits, women draped in pearls, inviting their laughter. Our janitor says he can play the piano. Isn't that adorable? Phones rise, ready to capture the moment. A little black girl at a corner table watches, clutching her mother's hand, eyes wide with hope instead of ridicule. In the shadows, an older black saxophonist lowers his instrument and looks away, as if he's seen this scene too many times before. All around, the room leans forward, waiting, expecting a spectacle, expecting him to stumble. Luther breathes, shoulders square beneath the harsh glow. For a second, his gaze drops to the floor, to the scuffed tips of his work boots. Then slowly, he raises his eyes, calm, steady, burning with something no amount of wealth can purchase, dignity. And as the grand piano gleams behind him like a challenge, the night takes a turn no one in that gilded hall could have imagined. The chandelier's light burns against Luther's skin. He doesn't answer Victoria right away. Instead, he lowers his gaze to the mop handle in his hand. His knuckles are rough, scarred, stained by years of labor. The laughter around him fades into a distant hum. Somewhere, in the rhythm of his own heartbeat, another sound rises, a chord, soft, hesitant, a memory carried on the air. He was just a boy in the worn-down neighborhoods of New Orleans, where the paint peeled from shotgun houses and the streets echoed with the call of church choirs. On Sunday mornings, while others shuffled in pressed, shirts, his mother, Evelyn Harris, lifted her voice in gospel. The congregation swayed, tears glistening on tired faces. To a child who often went to bed hungry, those songs were food for the soul. At night, when the city was quiet, Evelyn would guide his tiny hands over the battered keys of an old piano their neighbor had given them. The wood was cracked, the strings out of tune, but to Luther it sounded like possibility. "Baby," she whispered, her voice trembling with both strength and weariness, "don't ever let anyone tell you our song doesn't matter. You carry us every time you play." Her words stayed with him, through school, through the long nights of studying, through the years he clawed his way into a prestigious job as a systems engineer, one of the few black men in a company of suits and silence. He remembers 2011, a glass tower meeting room, the city glittering outside. Executives sat in leather chairs, sliding a folder toward him. The numbers looked clean on paper, but Luther saw the truth hidden in the fine print. Factories planned for a black neighborhood, waste that would poison children who looked like him. He pushed the pen back. "I can't sign this." "Not when it costs lives." The room went cold. One of his colleagues, young, black, a man Luther had mentored, glanced nervously around, then snatched the folder. His signature hit the page. Luther's heart cracked. The betrayal cut deeper than the executive's silence ever could. By year's end, Luther was gone. Career shattered, reputation smeared. The man once designing futures was now sweeping floors in the same city he had hoped to protect. And yet, one thing never left him. Music. In his pocket, always, a slender bamboo pen worn smooth with years of touch, a gift from his late wife, Mei Lin, a Chinese-American poet who had seen in him what others refused to see. "When you play," she once told him, her hand resting over his, "it's like you're writing prayers into the air." Now, in the hotel lobby, the echoes of that long-ago piano rise again inside him. He curls his fingers against the mop handle as if it were the keys of that old instrument. His jaw tightens. From across the room, the little black girl still watches, whispering softly to her mother, "Mama, he can really play, right?" The mother hushes her, but her eyes don't leave Luther. Neither do Victoria's, sharp and merciless. Luther lifts his head, steadying his breath. The memory of gospel nights, the sting of betrayal, the touch of his wife's hand, they all collide in his chest. The janitor is no longer just a man in orange cloth. He is a vessel of everything they once tried to take from him. And behind him, the grand piano waits, black and gleaming, daring him to prove her wrong. The Langford Hotel glowed like a jewel box in the heart of New Orleans. Marble floors shone under chandeliers, waiters floated with silver trays, and the city's elite clustered in laughter, politicians, bankers, oilmen, and their jeweled wives. It wasn't just a gala. It was Victoria Langford's stage. She arrived with the timing of a queen. Victoria Langford, 48, golden curls, diamond necklace sparkling against a black silk gown, moved as though the night itself belonged to her. The crowd parted. A councilman rushed to flatter her. "This city owes you everything," she answered smoothly. "Cities don't owe me. They thrive because I give them vision." The room applauded on cue. Behind her trailed polished men in white tuxedos, eager to bask in her glow. At her side hovered Mr. Whitmore, the hotel's manager, 55, silver hair combed to perfection, his smile stiff with loyalty. To Victoria, he bent low. To the staff, especially the black ones, his glance carried quiet disdain. "Keep the workers out of sight," he muttered, gesturing toward the janitors. "This is not their stage." Music curled in the air. Curtis, a weary black saxophonist in a faded suit, played softly from the corner. His notes carried the weight of old hymns, the blues of men who'd lived too many silenced years. He lifted his eyes just long enough to catch sight of Luther across the room. A nod, a shared history. Then his gaze fell back to the floor. And Victoria? She noticed the orange uniform near her table. Her smirk sharpened as her eyes flicked to the gleaming grand piano in the center of the room. Power was her favorite game. Tonight she was already planning her move. Luther works the mop in slow, practiced pulls, polishing the marble beside the VIP table until the chandelier breaks into 100 tiny suns on the floor. The gala hums around him, silverware, low laughter, money talking in a dozen accents. He keeps his shoulders square, his eyes on the tile, the orange of his uniform a bright flare against the black and gold room. A shadow crosses the light. Victoria Langford angles her chair toward him, curiosity sharpened to a point. Her gaze drops to his name tag, then climbs back to his face, like she's measuring a wall for demolition. "Luther Harris," she says, shaping the syllables into a smirk. "That's charming. Tell me, Mr. Harris, do you have any talents beyond pushing a mop?" A few guests lean in. A councilman's laugh escapes too quickly. Mr. Whitmore drifts closer, hands folded, the dutiful smile of a man who lives to manage other people's discomfort. Luther rings the mop head once, sets the handle against the cart. His voice is even, almost quiet, yet it carries. "I play piano," Sometimes. The words land like a glass dropped on marble, clean, startling, impossible to ignore. Heads turn. Somewhere the string quartet falters. Curtis's sax holds a long note and then slips into silence, as if the room has asked it to hush. Victoria's eyebrow climbs. You play? Her gaze flicks to the ebony grand at the room's center, lid raised like a black wing. She turns to her, table letting amusement bloom. Did you all hear that? Her laugh is bright and brittle. Our janitor is a pianist. The reaction rolls outward in waves, titters, then open laughter, then the high chime of phone cameras snapping to life. A man in a white tux lifts his phone. This I have to see. A woman whispers, What do janitors play? Happy birthday. Whitmore lifts a hand toward the quartet. Hold a moment, he murmurs. The players freeze mid-page, bows hovering, as if even the sheet music is waiting for permission to breathe. Luther doesn't reach for the piano. He doesn't reach for anything. He simply stands where he is, the mop water stilling at his feet, his hands loose at his sides. The little black girl, near the back, rises halfway from her chair, straining to see. Her mother curls an arm around her shoulders, but her own eyes are fixed on Luther, unblinking. A reporter edges closer, recorder half hidden behind a glass. Name again? He asks, no one in particular, already typing Luther. Come now, a banker calls, buoyed by the crowd. Play us something fun. Chopin? Another jokes. Or does the staff stick to nursery rhymes? Victoria doesn't shush them. She savors them. We do love a surprise, she says lightly, as if generosity were her sport. Her diamond bracelet flashes as she gestures toward the piano. It's right there. Don't be shy. Curtis lowers his sax, fingers tightening around the brass. He doesn't look up, but a muscle jumps in his jaw. He knows that tone. He's heard it on stages he wasn't allowed to share, in rooms that applauded the blues while starving the man who played them. Luther's thumb finds the edge of his pocket, feeling the smooth curve of a familiar pen. He takes a breath that steadies instead of inflates. Around him, the laughter thins into expectation, then hardens into a circle. Phones rise a little higher. The marble shines a little brighter. Victoria's smile sharpens into something almost ceremonial. And the room, convinced it is about to witness a harmless joke, leans forward together, ready to turn a man into entertainment before dessert. Victoria rises like a verdict. The room stills just enough for her voice to carry. Play us something. On my grand piano, Luther's hand is still damp from the mop. Ma'am, he says, even, careful, I'm here to work. I'm not part of the program. Her smile hardens. Fingertips drum once, then crack against the table. Don't be shy. Or maybe you're just all talk. A ripple moves through the gala, amused, hungry. Chairs pivot. Crystal hums against crystal. Mr. Whitmore steps half a pace behind her shoulder, the posture of a man who believes in pecking orders and public lessons. Curtis lowers his sax to his thigh and tilts his head down, eyes on the floor tiles he's played over 100 nights. The weight in his shoulders says enough. He knows how quickly room like this can decide who is worth listening to. She asked nicely, a banker says, already recording. Come on, man. Another chuckles. It's a party. Luther doesn't move. The chandelier's fire scatters across the marble he polished into a mirror. Somewhere in that mirror, without warning, another table appears. Glass walls, a long folder sliding toward him, a pen clicked open, ink poised above a line that would poison a neighborhood by the river. Someone cleared a throat. Someone else stared out at the skyline like it was the only truth in the room. A younger colleague, black, nervous, avoided his eyes and signed instead. Afterward, a hand on Luther's elbow, a door closing softly, the sound of paper shredders, and people looking away. The memory doesn't drown him, it sharpens him. His thumb finds the smooth curve of a bamboo pen in his pocket, the one that once rode in May Lin's bag between notebooks and tea leaves. She used to tap it against his wrist like a metronome when he practiced late, whispering, "Find the note that tells the truth." The pen warms beneath his grip, as if the wood remembers. "Enough stalling," Victoria purrs, sweet and sour. "You said you play." Show them a few guests clap in syncopated mocking bursts, as if to count him in. The string quartet waits, bows lifted, faces politely blank, like they've seen charity turn to circus before. Near the back, a little black girl leans forward until her dress creases at the waist. She presses a paper program into a tight roll, knuckles white. Her mother's palm rests over her braid, gentle but firm. The girl's lips form a small word she doesn't dare voice. "Please." "On your feet, mister." Harris Whitmore tries on authority like a tux. "Miss, Langford is offering you an opportunity. Opportunity. The kind that once came with quiet conditions and doors that swung shut afterward." Luther breathes. The breath doesn't puff him up. It anchors him. "I appreciate the hospitality," he says, tone measured, "but I wasn't hired to entertain." Laughter pricks his skin like static. "Hear that?" Victoria turns to the table, letting the room borrow her disdain. Modesty. Or excuses Curtis's fingers worry the edge of a key, silent. The old man swallows, and for a second the lobby's gold dissolves into churchwood, the taste of hymns sung against grief. He wants to speak. He chooses not to. Survival has rules. Phones lift higher. The grand piano gleams brighter, every inch a dare. Luther keeps his eyes on Victoria, then lets them pass through her, to the instrument, to the girl, to the reflection of orange cloth in black lacquer. The mockery thickens, but something shifts inside that quiet. Memory stops being a wound and becomes a map. Love stops being a loss and becomes a hand at his back. Luther's jaw sets. He doesn't step forward, not yet. He takes one more breath, and the room, expecting a joke, doesn't. Notice that it has already become the prelude. Luther scans the room. Co-workers slip their gazes away as if eye contact might cost them shifts. Guests lean in, grins primed, phones lifted, waiting for the punchline they believe he's about to deliver. From the back, a small voice threads through the noise. "You can do it, mister." The little black girl doesn't blink. Her mother's hand rests on her shoulder, steady, protective, but the child won't look away. Something loosens in Luther's chest. He touches the bamboo pen in his pocket, once a metronome against his wrist, once a promise from a woman who believed. His fingers leave the pen and fold at his sides. He meets Victoria's eyes. The diamond light around her seems colder now. "All right," he says, not loud but clear enough to cut through the laughter. "I'll play." Everything pauses. The quartet freezes mid-breath. Mr. Whitmore's smile twitches, unsure whether to celebrate or supervise. The banker lowers his phone an inch, then raises it higher. A waiter stops in the middle of pouring champagne. The stream wobbles, then stills. Curtis exhales a tiny note into the sax. Barely sound, more a blessing than a melody. It hangs for the length of a heartbeat, then fades. Luther unhooks the mop from the cart and eases it into the corner. The orange of his uniform burns bright against the gilded room. He doesn't hurry. He won't be rushed to his own humiliation. Each step is chosen, the kind a man takes when he understands exactly what a stage can do to a soul. The crowd parts in small ripples. Chairs angle for better sightlines. He passes the councilman who had laughed too quickly. The man clears his throat, performs a neutral face. He passes a trio of investors whispering odds like it's a wager. He keeps walking. Victoria reclines half an inch, the smile of someone who believes she's directing the scene. "Good," she murmurs, just loud enough. "Let's give our guests a story." Luther doesn't answer. The piano answers for him. Black lacquer, open lid, a dark wing waiting. He stops at the bench, rests his fingertips on the polished wood without sitting. The surface is cool, reflective. A sliver of his face looks back at him, older and steadier than the one the room expects. Behind him, The hotel hushes into a single listening body. The little girl stands now, both hands on the back of her chair, eyes bright. Her mother doesn't pull her down. A reporter edges closer, then thinks better of it, and steps back. Even the chandeliers seem to dim, as if light itself is leaning closer. Luther slides the bench an inch, the sound small but decisive. He loosens his shoulders, breath in, held, out. The memory of refusing a signature flickers across his mind. A line he would not cross, a future he would not sell. Tonight there's no paper, no pen, only keys. He lowers himself onto the bench. The room folds around the moment, tight as a held cord. Hands find their, hover above the ivory, and with the softest tap, left, then right, he claims the instrument like a name he's carried all his life. The gala waits to laugh. He is already past that. Luther lowers himself onto the bench. The light from the chandelier lands on his shoulders like a weight. Ivory waits under his hands. They tremble, tiny quakes he doesn't try to hide. A hush ripples outward. Glass stems settle to saucers. The quartet holds its breath. Near the VIP table, one of Victoria's investors, Preston Hale, jaw sharp, tucks immaculate, tilts his chin and smirks, raising 2 fingers to cue his friends. Screens bloom to life around the room, red dots winking, angles hunted. "Get this," someone whispers. Full frame. Mr. Whitmore leans toward Victoria, voice dipped in velvet. "This will be entertaining." "Of course it will," she replies, barely moving her lips. "Everything I host is." Luther flexes his fingers once, twice, like a boxer rolling out his knuckles before the bell. The tremor eases but doesn't vanish. He places his left hand lightly over the low keys, his right hand hovering above the high. No flourish, no pretense, just air and waiting. Curtis stands a few yards off, Sachs at his side, chin tucked. He doesn't speak, but the set of his shoulders says prayer. From the back, the little black girl leans forward until she's on her toes. "You got this," she whispers, so quiet only her mother hears. The mother doesn't hush her this time. Someone near the bar bets a 20 on 3 notes and a collapse. Laughter flares, then dies when Luther closes his eyes. He breathes in, long and measured, and lets the breath leave like smoke from a midnight candle. The room leans closer. Preston's phone camera inches toward the keys. Victoria's smile fixes into an ornament. Luther touches one key with his left hand. A single note, soft as a pulse, blooms and fades. Another follows, a half step away, the sound not confident yet but clean. He doesn't rush to build a melody. He listens to how the room receives the tone, the marble answering, the glass answering, even the breath of the crowd answering, before he gives them another. Whitmore's eyelids flicker. Is he tuning himself? "Let him," Victoria says. "The longer it takes, the sweeter the fall." Luther opens his eyes. The tremor is still there, but now it belongs to the moment, not to fear. He drops his right hand, lands a chord that sits sturdier than the first 2 notes, and a shape begins to form. Low, steady ground under a thin, searching line. Curtis exhales. The girl smiles. A reporter lowers his phone without meaning to. Preston keeps filming, but his smirk thins by a hair. And under the chandelier, with the room arranged like a jury, Luther lays his hands where they need to be, ready to speak in a language no one at that table can edit. The first notes fall soft and unsteady, a hymn whispered rather than played. Amazing grace. Some laugh. A banker mutters, "Church music?" A woman chuckles behind her phone. But Luther doesn't look up. His fingers settle, the tremor still there, yet each note carries weight, fragile, searching, undeniable. The melody lingers in the air, and with it, a shadow of stained glass windows, glowing in late afternoon. His mother's voice rises clear and trembling, leading the church choir. She leans over a battered piano, guiding a boy's hands 1 finger at a time. "Don't let them silence you, baby. Our song matters." The harmony bends. Luther presses harder, turning the hymn into something else, blues edges curling around gospel roots. The laughter begins to thin. Phones keep filming, but now no one speaks. A flash of glass walls, a folder sliding across a table, men in dark suits waiting, his refusal. The pen pushed away. Then the sting, his protégé signing in his place. The music tightens, dissonant chords clawing against the melody, until the hymn nearly breaks apart. But Luther doesn't stop. His left hand drops lower, grounding the sound in deep, rolling bass. His right hand lifts the melody, reshaping it into something bold. Gospel rising into jazz, grief braided with defiance. Curtis closes his eyes. His hand squeezes the saxophone's bell, but he doesn't play. He lets the piano speak for both of them. The little black girl stands now, fingers clutching the edge of her chair. She doesn't whisper this time. She just listens, wide-eyed, as if the song is telling her a secret. Another memory stirs. Maylene, his wife, pressing a bamboo pen into his palm, her smile soft but fierce. When you play, Luther, it's like you're writing prayers in the air. The phrase builds, swelling higher, refusing to bow. Amazing grace is no longer fragile. It soars, part hymn, part testimony, part cry for every silence he carried. The notes ring against marble and glass, reaching into corners that money can't touch. By the time he strikes the final chord, the room is breathless. Not one laugh remains. The sound hangs, trembling, before dissolving into silence. In that silence, the message is clear. This is not entertainment. This is survival. This is truth that no contract, no mockery, no wealth could erase. Luther lifts his hands. The piano still hums, but the years that were buried are no longer mute. They have spoken, and everyone has heard. The final chord dissolves into air. For a heartbeat, nothing moves. Then, everything stops. The gala freezes, glasses hang mid-air, forks halted above plates. Laughter vanishes as if cut by a blade. What was meant to be a spectacle has become a trial, and every guest knows it. Phones that were raised for mockery now record something else entirely. Awe. Screens shake in trembling hands. A man near the bar mutters, What did we just hear?" His companion only stares, unable to answer. The division in the room is stark. White guests shift in their seats, amusement draining into unease. Their smirks crack, their applause never comes. Across the aisle, black guests sit straighter, eyes wet, silence pressing into them like a hymn they haven't heard in years. At the far table, a grandmother whispers, "Lord, I never thought I'd see this day." Her hands tremble, not from age alone but from recognition. Finally, someone dared. Curtis lowers his saxophone completely, the brass catching light. He doesn't speak, but the look he casts toward Luther is louder than any note. "You've said what I never could." The little black girl leans forward, her voice a fragile thread in the silence. "Mama, he won." Her mother nods, unable to form words, tears catching the chandelier's light. From the head table, Victoria tries to reclaim the air. She claps once, slow, sharp, hollow. "Well," she says, voice pitched too high. "That was unexpected." No one joins her, not a single hand. The silence smothers her performance, heavier than any jeer. Luther doesn't rise. His palms rest gently on the keys, the piano still humming faintly beneath him. He doesn't bow or smile. He lets the quiet spread until it fills every corner of the gilded hall, until even the chandeliers seem to dim in reverence. For those who laughed, the silence burns. For those who have been silenced, it heals. The banker with the betting slip crushes it in his fist. The journalist stops recording, realizing the story cannot be captured in pixels. And somewhere in the crowd, a senator clears his throat, but no words dare follow. The room belongs to him now. Not Victoria, not the donors, not the cameras, just the man in the orange uniform, seated at the piano like it was always waiting for him. The silence is not empty. It roars, and in that roar, Everyone knows. Luther has already won. The silence holds, thick and unforgiving. Luther's hands remain on the keys, the last vibration fading into marble. At the head table, Victoria's smile falters. She adjusts her necklace, but the gesture doesn't steady her. The diamond light that once framed her like a crown now cuts harsh lines across her face. For a moment, she isn't in the Langford Hotel. She's back in a glass-walled boardroom, 2011. Her company, then a hungry rising empire, had pushed for a project on the riverfront. The numbers promised billions. The reports flagged minimal risk, but there had been one dissenting voice. A man, tall, calm. His tie was plain, his skin brown, his tone steady. This will poison families. Entire neighborhoods will be displaced. Don't do this. She remembers the silence after his words. She remembers ignoring it. Worse, she remembers profiting from it. The vision cuts quick, like a blade. Ribbon cuttings, cameras flashing, her name in headlines. Land cleared, contracts signed, profits swelling. And under it all, the knowledge that someone had tried to stop her. Her gaze jerks back to the present, to the man at the piano, orange uniform, rough hands. But the face, older now, lined by years, unmistakably the same. God, she whispers, barely audible. It's him. Mr. Whitmore leans close. What was that? She doesn't answer. Her throat tightens. Across the hall, Curtis lifts his head, sensing a shift. The little girl grips her mother's sleeve tighter, watching the powerful woman pale. The silence is no longer just Luther's. It's hers, too. Victoria remembers brushing him aside. Cities rise on vision, she had said, back then, the same line she still fed investors tonight. He had stood firm, and she had let the system devour him. She had chosen profit over conscience, and now here he was, the man she once dismissed into ruin, commanding her ballroom with nothing but music. Her hand trembles against the crystal stem of her glass. It knocks once against the table, a brittle sound in the heavy quiet. Guests glance at her, waiting for her to reclaim control. But for the first time, she has nothing. The twist is clear. The janitor she mocked isn't just a janitor. He is the same man she helped erase a decade ago. The same man who told the truth she buried under contracts and ribbon cuttings. And now, under her own chandeliers, his truth has risen again, louder than her diamonds, sharper than her power. Victoria Langford, queen of the city, finds herself dethroned by the very memory she tried to forget. The last echo of Luther's chord still trembles when Mr. Whitmore steps forward. His polished shoes strike the marble with quick, nervous taps. His hand lifts toward the piano lid. "Enough," he says, voice firm, rehearsed. The evening program must continue. He reaches as if to close the lid. Before his fingers touch the black lacquer, a voice cuts through the air. Rough, steady, impossible to ignore. "Play, brother." Every head turns. It isn't a guest in silk. It isn't a councilman. It's Curtis, the old saxophonist from the corner. His eyes, once lowered, blaze now with something that has waited decades. He lifts the horn in his hand like a flag. "Don't stop." Not tonight. The words hang, heavier than Whitmore's authority. A hush. Then, from a table near the back, another voice, an older black man in a pressed Sunday suit. "Play," he echoes, his fist striking the table for rhythm. A woman follows, her voice ringing clear. "Let him play." The shift is sudden, undeniable. The laughter that once mocked now falls into silence, replaced by a low rumble of support. Black guests rise one by one, their faces lit not by chandeliers, but by recognition. Curtis blows a single note from his sax, thin, sharp, alive. It slices through the gala like a call to arms. Luther doesn't move, but the sound lands in his chest like a brother's hand on his shoulder. Whitmore freezes, caught between his orders and the tide rising around him. "Ladies and gentlemen," he stammers, "please, let him play." A voice cuts, louder now. Applause breaks out, not polite claps, but a pulse, a rhythm older than this ballroom. Palms strike against palms, syncopated, deliberate. The cadence of church basements, protest marches, block parties where people refuse to be silent. Even those who don't join can't escape it. The white investors shift uneasily, their phones lowered. The councilman presses his lips together, his applause absent but his silence louder than before. At the head table, Victoria rises halfway, trying to summon control. "This is my event." "No," Curtis calls back, his horn gleaming under the lights. "This is our night." Gasps ripple. For the first time, Victoria's voice carries no weight. The power has left her table. Luther's eyes lift from the keys. The girl in the back stares at him, hope burning in her small frame. The rhythm of the crowd fills the room like an oncoming tide. Whitmore lets his hand fall uselessly to his side. His command has been drowned. Victoria sits slowly, her smile brittle, her grip whitening on her glass stem. The chandelier's light no longer crowns her. It crowns the man in orange, seated at the piano with the weight of a community at his back. The shift is complete. What began as mockery has become defiance, and the gala is no longer hers to command. The room waits not for permission, but for Luther. The piano erupts. Luther's hands strike like thunder, the left rolling deep, the right flying sharp. The chandelier quivers with each chord. The melody isn't polite. It roars, bends, cries. Amazing grace bleeds into blues, twists into gospel fire. It's not performance, it's testimony. Gasps ripple through the crowd. A woman covers her mouth. A man whispers, "What is this?" Curtis lowers his sax, eyes wet. "Let it out, brother," he breathes. The little girl rises on her chair, fists clenched. Her mother lets her stand. Tears spill across the room. A black man near the back whispers, "He's playing for all of us." The words ripple, caught by others, a current moving faster than applause. The music climbs, furious, dissonant, then bends back into beauty. Pain and hope fuse. Notes slam like doors once shut in his face, then lift like windows opening. Victoria stares, frozen. Her diamond smile has cracked. Leonard, phone still raised, forgets to film. His smirk has drained away. The hymn swells again, louder, fuller, unstoppable. The gala is no longer a party. It's a church, a march, a cry. Guests bow heads, clutch hands, weep openly. Some whisper prayers, others simply listen. Arrogance stripped bare. The final run blazes. Luther's fingers a storm across ivory. One last chord detonates, bright, aching, unbroken. Then silence. Not the silence of mockery, but reverence, a silence that belongs to him. The last chord still hangs when a chair scrapes against marble. Heads turn. From a quiet corner near the stage, a tall black man rises, sharp suit catching the chandelier's glow. Recognition ripples through the crowd like a shockwave. "Is that," someone whispers, "Marcus Cole?" The name spreads. Marcus Cole, Grammy-winning soul singer, voice of a generation, had been Victoria's secret guest, meant to close the gala with a polished performance. Instead, he is already walking, steady, deliberate, toward the piano. Curtis lowers his sax completely. The little girl gasps, clutching her mother's sleeve. Phones rise again, but this time they shake not with mockery, but disbelief. Marcus stops beside Luther. His eyes glisten, his jaw tight. For a moment, the hall holds its breath, unsure if he will reclaim the stage or rebuke the intrusion. Instead, Marcus places a hand on Luther's shoulder. His voice, low and resonant, rolls across the silence. "Brother, don't stop now." Luther meets his gaze, stunned. Marcus nods once, then turns to the crowd. "You wanted music?" His tone sharpens. "Here it is." And then he sings. No microphone, no backing track, just raw voice, deep, velvet, aching. He takes the line where Luther's piano left off, wrapping it in words. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound. The effect is electric. The crowd, stunned moments ago, surges to its feet. Black guests clap in rhythm, tears streaming freely. Even those who mocked earlier fall silent, phones forgotten at their sides. Luther doesn't hesitate. His fingers answer the voice, keys swelling under Marcus's song. The piano and the voice braid together, soul and thunder, grief and triumph. Curtis raises his sax and sends a single wail spiraling above them, completing the trinity. The gala is no longer a banquet, it is a concert. No, something bigger, a revival. The little girl cries out with joy, "He's with him, Mama! He's with him!" Her mother sobs openly, hands lifted as if in church. Victoria sits rigid, her diamonds useless, her stage stolen. The event she curated has turned on her, transformed into a living testament she cannot control. Leonard stares, pale, lips pressed tight, unable to joke, unable to sneer. The song builds, Marcus's voice soaring, Luther's chords pounding, Curtis's sax cutting through like a blade. The walls shake with it. When the final refrain lands, "Was blind, but now I see," the entire hall erupts. Applause, cheers, shouts, stomps. The floor itself seems to thunder. From mockery to miracle, the night has flipped. The janitor, once meant to be entertainment, now stands at the center of a stage shared with a Grammy winner, lifted by a community that refuses to be silent. Victoria Langford's gala is no longer hers. It belongs to Luther Harris. The roar thins to breath. Marcus lowers his voice, Curtis lets the last wail fade, and Luther's hands leave the keys. For a beat, the hall stands on its feet, clapping, shouting, tears shining like glass under the chandeliers. Victoria rises into the noise, trying to catch the wave and ride it. "Well," she says, forcing brightness, "what a delightful surprise. Truly inspiring." The crowd doesn't buy it. Applause falls uneven. A few boos needle through silk and diamonds. A small voice cuts the air clean. The little black girl, standing on her chair, cups her hands around her mouth. "Say sorry to him." It lands like a drum. Heads turn. Her mother starts, then nods. "Say sorry," she echoes, steady. A man near the back. "Say sorry." A woman in pearls. "Say it." Curtis lifts his chin. "Say sorry." The words gather, a rhythm older than the room. "Say sorry. Say sorry." Palms beat the cadence. Heels stomp it into marble. The chant swells until it drowns the strings, the donors, the curated agenda. Mr. Whitmore raises both hands, flustered. "Ladies and gentlemen, please." No one listens. Victoria's smile fractures. "Let's not turn a lovely evening into, 'Say sorry.'" The chant cracks open into thunder. Leonard sinks into his chair, eyes down, phone pocketed at last. The councilman who laughed earlier studies his shoes. Investors avoid the glare of their own screens. Marcus steps back from the piano, but stays beside Luther, a quiet witness. Curtis plants his sax at his side like a staff. The chant hammers on. "Say sorry! Say sorry!" Even those who remain silent feel it pushing at their ribs. Victoria looks to Whitmore for rescue and finds none. She looks to the press table and sees recorders raised, red lights blinking. Finally, she looks to the man on the bench, the orange uniform, the steady eyes, and understands there is no path out, only through. Her throat works. She swallows. Her voice doesn't carry. She clears it and tries again. "I apologize." The syllables come brittle, then break. "I apologize to Mr. Harris." The room hushes, waiting for more. "I was unkind," she adds, the words souring as they leave. "I disrespected you." The chant stops. Silence floods back in, not empty this time, but listening. Luther stands. He doesn't gloat. He doesn't move toward her. He simply meets her gaze the way he met the keys. Steady, exact. "We all have gifts," he says, voice clear enough to touch the far wall. "Some of us just weren't born with silver spoons." A murmur rolls, soft, astonished. The line is not a blow, it's a mirror. Victoria flinches anyway. Luther's eyes don't hold hate, they hold boundaries. He nods once, enough to acknowledge the apology, not enough to absorb the weight for her. The little girl exhales a happy sob. He said it, Mama. Her mother squeezes her hand. And he meant it. Marcus smiles, a brief flicker of pride. Curtis lets out a breath that sounds like a prayer. Whitmore shifts, chastened, shrinking a size in his suit. Leonard can't find a joke. The donors' table sits very still. Victoria lowers herself back into her chair, diminished by something money cannot purchase, a room. That will remember. The applause that follows is different from before. Not shock, not frenzy. Respect. It rises and falls like surf, steady, cleansing. Luther doesn't soak in it. He steps back from the bench so the piano can breathe. For the first time all night, the gala belongs to Truth, and Truth, uninvited, has taken the head seat. The night doesn't end at the Langford Hotel. It detonates online. 30-second clips hit the feeds first, Luther's trembling first notes, the rising storm, Marcus Cole stepping in without a mic, the chant, "Say sorry." Then the moment Victoria folds and says it. Captions bloom. The janitor who turned a gala into a church. Grace in orange. Truth on keys. Views climb like a siren. 10,000, 200,000, a million. Comment threads flood, especially from black voices. He plays like my grandfather used to sing in church. My mama cried, and she don't cry at nothing. That left hand is a whole deacon board. This ain't performance. This is testimony. Duets and stitches arrive by the hour. Choirs harmonizing over his chords. Organists laying a Hammond bed under the clip. Drummers adding a marching cadence like Sunday spilling into Monday. A young pianist posts a breakdown of Luther's voicings. Listen to how he bends the third, pain to hope, in one gesture. A pastor uploads a sermon excerpt. Sometimes God lets a man in a work suit lead the service. Local news at 6 rolls the footage on loop. A chyron reads, "Janitor pianist stuns high society gala." The anchor leans into the camera. What started as mockery ended as a standing ovation and an apology. Morning shows call it the sound of a city remembering itself. Radio hosts play the clip between soul classics. A late-night comic tries a weak joke and then lets the piano run uncut. The faces from the gala reappear in freeze frames. There's the little girl on her chair, now the internet's favorite witness, captioned, "When faith looks like a child." Curtis, eyes closed, sacks lowered. Elders who kept the flame. A still of Luther's hands hovering above the keys racks up millions of shares with 4 words. Let him play anywhere. PR statements land like glass in gravel. The Langford Foundation celebrates artistic excellence. The ratio is brutal. Someone replies with Victoria's slow clap. Someone else posts the apology, subtitled in bold, "I disrespected you." Donors go quiet, commentators don't. Leonard, who smirked through half the night, slips out of frame in the videos, but not out of memory. A slow-motion clip of him raising his phone at the start and lowering it at the end becomes a meme. From laugh to loss, a board he sits on releases a bland note about reflecting on our values. He cancels a public appearance, scheduling conflict. It reads like retreat. It looks like disgrace. Meanwhile, the shares keep multiplying in the places that matter. Most group chats, choir threads, family text chains. Aunties send it with heart emojis. Uncles forward it with, "Y'all hear that left hand?" College kids blast it through dorm speakers while studying. In a barbershop on Claiborne, the clip runs between fades and lineups. A man in the chair says, "He hit that change like a prayer break," and everyone hms in agreement. Reporters try for interviews. Luther doesn't pick up. Marcus posts a still, his hand on Luther's shoulder, with the caption, "Some nights are bigger than charts." Curtis writes 3 words on his feed, "Worth the wait." By morning, a street singer sets up near Jackson Square, playing the same progression, a bucket for tips at his feet. A couple stops, listens, leaves nothing but a note. For the man in orange. Thank you. In the hotel's back corridors, staff swap shaky phone videos and high fives between shifts. Mr. Whitmore keeps his head down. The quartet nods to the piano and chooses silence. A think piece lands by afternoon, when Grace crashes a gala. It names what the clip has already taught, that dignity can cut through chandeliers, that a city's oldest songs still own its newest rooms, that a man who cleans the floor might be the only person in it capable of raising the roof. And the comment that gets pinned under the most watched upload is simple. From a user with a church hat in her profile picture, "He plays like my grandfather used to sing in church. I felt my whole childhood standing up." Leonard doesn't respond. His accounts stay quiet. His smile, once a currency, buys him nothing. The city hums with a new refrain. Not a catchphrase, not a brand. Just a memory set free and passed from hand to hand. The hotel has exhaled its last guest. Lights dim. Staff push carts through sleepy corridors. Luther signs out at the service desk and steps into the loading bay. Night air cool against the heat still humming in his hands. "Brother." Marcus Cole waits by the door, coat over his arm, tie loosened. No entourage, no cameras. Just the man, and a quiet that feels honest. "I won't keep you," Marcus says. "I just wanted to say thank you for tonight." Luther nods. "You did the heavy lifting." Marcus shakes his head. "I just met the moment." "You made it a beat." "Look, I'm not here to promise stages or spotlights. I don't do glitter speeches, but I can offer a mic and a room." He smiles, small and real. "There's a studio on Bazin. Old Hammond, good mics, no suits. We could cut a simple demo, piano how you played it. Nothing polished off the truth." Luther looks past him to the dark street. A night truck grumbles by. Somewhere, a siren wails and fades. He turns the bamboo pen in his pocket, wood warm from his palm. "I haven't recorded in a long time," he says. "Then the first take will have breath on it," Marcus answers. "Best kind." They stand with the silence a moment longer. Not awkward, just weighty. Curtis slips out the employee door, sax case in hand. He tips his chin. "If you boys need a horn, you know where to find one." Marcus grins. "You're already on the track in my head, Curtis." Curtis chuckles and heads into the night. Marcus looks back at Luther. "I'm serious about the no promises part. I've seen promises turn to chains. This is just a door. If you want it, a thin memory opens inside Luther. A kitchen at midnight, Mei Lin steeping tea, the ghost of a melody in the air." She presses the pen into his palm. "When you play, it's like you're writing prayers in the air," she says, laughing softly at his stubbornness. "One day, let the world read them." He clears his throat. "I have a shift tomorrow." "After," Marcus says. "Or before." "Studio's ours when we say so." He pulls a small card from his pocket. Pen scratches. "Text me." No managers, just you and the keys. Luther studies the card, not for the number, but for the steadiness in the handwriting. He isn't afraid of failure, he's afraid of being turned into a story that isn't his. "No contracts tonight," Marcus adds, reading the thought. "No cameras. We'll keep the song bigger than the clip." Luther exhales. The night smells like asphalt and jasmine. He's still in the orange uniform. He's still the man who mops floors. He's also the man who made a ballroom listen. He looks up. "If we do it, it has to sound like tonight. Not cleaner, not safer. That's the only way I know," Marcus says. A beat. A nod. "All right," Luther says. "We'll try." Marcus's smile widens just enough. He offers his hand. Luther takes it. No deal, signed, no flashbulbs, just a grip that feels like agreement between craftsmen. "Sunday evening?" Marcus suggests, after church lets out. "Sunday," Luther echoes, the word sitting warm in his chest. They part at the curb. Luther walks toward the bus stop, the city humming its low, endless hymn. He touches the pen once more, and for the first time in years, the future doesn't feel like a hallway of locked doors. It feels like a room with a piano and a light left on. 2 nights after the gala, Luther finishes his shift at the hotel. The mop water is poured out, the cart parked, the badge clocked. He's heading for the back door when a man in a tailored suit blocks the way. "Mr. Harris," the man says, voice smooth, professional. "I represent Miss Victoria Langford. She asked me to deliver this personally. A folder, thick, embossed in gold. Inside, a contract. An exclusive promotion deal," the man explains. "Television spots, charity appearances, even a scholarship fund in your name. A chance to turn a mistake into a partnership. You'd be well compensated." Luther studies the folder without touching it. His silence unnerves the man. "She wants to make this right," the agent presses, "to show the world she supports you. Think of what this could do for your future." Luther finally lifts his gaze, calm, unblinking. "For my future," he repeats. The bamboo pen in his pocket rests against his palm. He remembers Mei Lin tapping it against his wrist, smiling through fatigue. "Play only the notes that tell the truth." He closes the folder, still untouched, and pushes it back into the man's hands. "Tell Ms. Langford." His voice is low, steady. "I don't play for her profit." The agent blinks. "Excuse me?" "I don't play for your contracts, or your cameras, or your silver spoons." His eyes narrow, voice firm enough to sting. "I play for my people, for the ones who never had a seat in that ballroom, for the little girl who shouted when no one else would, for the men who worked 2 shifts and still sang on Sundays. For her," he taps his pocket once, a small, deliberate gesture. "For Mei Lin, she believed my music mattered before any of you did." The man shifts, papers trembling slightly. "This could change everything." "It already did." Luther steps closer, his frame steady, his tone final. "You thought you could buy absolution. But grace isn't for sale." The words hit harder than any signature. The agent clears his throat, retreating a step. "I'll tell Ms. Langford." "You do that," Luther says. The man leaves quickly, shoes clicking too loud in the empty hall. The gold-embossed folder dangles at his side like something poisonous. Luther watches him go, then exhales slowly. He leans against the mop cart, closing his eyes. For the first time in years, refusal doesn't feel like loss. It feels like power. On his walk home, his phone buzzes. Notifications stack, messages from strangers, reposts, invitations. Some offer money, some beg for stories, some promise stages. He scrolls, then pockets the phone. None of it matters more than the echo of the piano under his hands. At a bus stop, a young man in work boots approaches shyly. "Hey, sir, I saw the video." He hesitates, then adds, "Made me think about my grandma's church. I almost forgot what that sounded like. Thank you." Luther nods once. "Hold on to it." The bus arrives, brakes hissing. Luther boards, finds a seat near the window. He rests the pen on his knee, rolling it gently. Streetlights flash across his reflection in the glass. Not a janitor, not a star, just a man who chose his own worth. The city hums outside, restless, alive. Somewhere in that hum, he hears music waiting, not for contracts or applause, but for truth. And for the first time, Luther knows he will never trade that sound. Not for profit, not for forgiveness, not for anyone's stage but his own. Sunday light spills through stained glass and settles on the dust of a familiar sanctuary. The old church on the corner hums, wood pews, scuffed hymnals, the smell of lemon oil and rain in the lumber. The piano Luther learned on sights against the front wall, its lid scarred, its keys uneven, faithful as ever. He rolls up his sleeves and rests his palm on the wood as if greeting an elder. Children shuffle closer, 10, 12, Maybe 15 kids in sneakers and Sunday shirts, braids and bow ties, eyes bright with a curiosity that hasn't yet learned to hide. A few hold school recorders. One clutches a plastic melodica. Another drags a tiny chipped keyboard with a missing C. "All right," Luther says, voice low and warm. "First thing, your hands are voices. Not hammers. We're not here to pound. We're here to tell the truth." A giggle, a hush, little fingers hover. He plays a soft triad, nothing fancy, then adds the note that leans, the blue between pain and hope. Small heads tilt. He nods. "You hear that bend? That's where the story lives." They repeat the shape, clumsy and perfect. A boy frowns, misses, laughs, tries again. A girl nails it and covers her mouth, amazed at her own sound. The sanctuary door opens. Curtis steps in carrying his sax case like a delicate thing. He's in a neat grey suit, hat in hand. For a moment he just stands, watching a room that looks like his childhood and his future in the same breath. Then he walks forward, places the case on a pew, and grips the end with both hands as if steadying himself. Luther looks up. They exchange a nod older than words. Curtis's eyes brim. "You gave us our song back," he says, voice catching on the last word. Luther shakes his head gently. "We never lost it. We just needed a night to remember." Curtis exhales a laugh that isn't laughter, wipes at his cheek with the back of his wrist, and pops the latches. The saxophone rises in pieces made whole. He tests a valve, the note whispering like a secret through the rafters. From the back pew, the little girl from the gala peeks around her mother's shoulder. The mother gives Luther a grateful nod. The child waves tiny fingers, then sits forward so hard her shoes squeak on the floor. "Let's put it together," Luther says. "Left hand, hold the ground. Right hand, find the river." He places a boy's fingers on the bass. "You're the floor." He lifts a girl's hands to the upper register. "You're the wind." They try. It wobbles. It rights itself. Curtis floats a tone above them, thin as a thread, and the children straighten with the shock of it, as if a bird just landed on their shoulders. Luther adds a rhythm, palm on wood, soft heel on floor. The room replicates it instinctively. Pat, step, pat, pat, step. It's the beat of Sunday afternoons when time was measured by sunlight and stew, the sound of a block party held together by extension cords and faith. Aunties gather near the side aisle, lips pursed in the way that means pride. An usher with a white glove taps the tempo on the back of a pew. Two deacons in short sleeves walk in mid-lesson, freeze, then take seats like boys. The pastor, drawn by the sound, leans in the doorway, hands in pockets, a smile blooming under years of funerals and hospital rooms. "Words?" Luther asks, glancing toward the choir loft. An elder from the alto row answers, "We got 'em." She hums the line and the first phrase finds legs. Simple, honest, the kind of lyric that knows how to hold a house together. The choir adds harmony the way they breathe. Automatic, generous. Luther lifts his hands and lets the children carry the melody, guiding without grabbing. "Feel the breath," he says. "Every phrase has one. Don't push. Let it come to you." The music swells. It isn't perfect. It doesn't need to be. A boy misses a change and laughs. The girl beside him lands it and grins so wide her eyes disappear. Curtis leans into a short run, and the whole room shouts, "Yes!" like a reflex. The little girl on the back pew can't sit anymore. Her mother lets her go. She tiptoes down the aisle and stops at the end of the piano. Luther slides, making room, and she lays one finger on one key with utmost care. He nods. The note rings pure over the children's chord. Again, Luther says softly, "From the top." They do. The sanctuary fills. Piano that knows the city's scars. A horn that remembers nights the city forgot. Small hands making big sound. Grown voices laying a roof of harmony. It is strong and it is tender. It is healing because it refuses to deny the hurt, and holy because it refuses to leave anyone outside. Between verses, Luther glances at the bamboo pen on the music stand. Maylin's ghost lingers in the corner of the room, not to haunt, but to witness. He touches the pen, once, a thank you without words. The song lands, not with a final crash, but a settled breath, like a congregation sitting after standing too long. Then claps, laughter, the scrape of pews as people stand to hug. Someone yells for a reprise. The pastor raises both hands. "Run it again!" They do, louder. The door stays open, the street hears and answers. A boy on a bike stops and leans it against the steps. A woman with groceries pauses and hums along, key change and all. A man in a delivery uniform ducks inside and claps on 2 and 4, right on time. Curtis slides a chair near the kids. "Your turn," he says, handing the mouthpiece to a boy with eyes like sunrise. Luther moves aside to let a girl take the bench for the simplest of figures. She plays it like treasure. The room roars for her. Between takes, Luther keeps it plain. "This isn't about becoming famous," he tells them. "It's about telling the truth so it can't be buried again." A small hand shoots up. "Mister, can we play What Happened at the Hotel?" He smiles. "Baby, that's exactly what you're playing." The next chorus rises, and the church shakes, not from volume, but from agreement. For blocks around, people can feel it in the bones of the street, a city remembering its voice, one note at a time. The stage isn't velvet and chrome, it's plywood and prayer. A neighborhood recreation center on a Saturday night, folding chairs in uneven rows, paper programs printed two to a page. Candles in mason jars line the lip of the stage. Faces glow, grandmothers in church hats, fathers in work boots, kids with scuffed sneakers swinging under their seats. The lights are soft, the air warm, the room full. Curtis tunes in the corner, a quick valve check and a nod. The children cluster around the old upright, hands buzzing, eyes wide. Marcus Cole steps to the side of the piano. No spotlight needed, jacket off, sleeves rolled. Luther stands at the keys, orange uniform traded for a clean white shirt, the same steady eyes. The host clears his throat into a dented mic. Community night, no tickets, no VIP, just music. Laughter ripples. Applause follows, easy as breathing. Luther looks at the kids. "Same way we practiced," he murmurs. "Ground and river." Tiny hands find positions, 2 on low notes, 2 high, 1 ready on a triangle like it's a crown jewel. Curtis raises his horn half an inch, waiting. The first chord lands, small, honest, true. A second joins. Then the river begins to move. Luther threads a line through it. Gentle push, gentle pull. Marcus hums a single pitch, then slips into words that carry the whole room with them. Amazing grace. The children follow, not perfect, not polished, exactly right. The crowd leans forward, and Auntie says, A man at the back wipes his eye with the heel of his hand. 2 teens elbow each other, then stop, listening without pretending not to. Curtis floats a phrase over the top, just a measure, just enough, and the choir of neighbors that isn't a choir at all answers with harmony they didn't know they knew. The candles flicker, the mason jars shine. Between verses, Luther steps back and nods to a girl in braids. She takes the bench like stepping into her own name. The tiniest run, a safe landing. The room erupts as if she split the atom. Marcus laughs, delighted, and the girl laughs back in disbelief and joy. "Your turn," Luther says to a boy gripping the triangle with white knuckles. The boy dings the downbeat and misses the next 2. He tries again. On the 3rd pass, he nails it. A grandmother stands up to clap, hands high, face brighter than the candles. They give the song to the room. Call and response, hums and hoots, a shout of, "Yes, Lord," from the aisle. A chuckle becoming a sob becoming a chorus. Phones rise but not to mock, only to keep. No filters, no captions, just proof. Marcus steps to the side, leaves the center to Luther and the kids. Curtis puts his horn down and claps time, the groove walking the aisles, collecting shoulders and feet. Luther plays a figure that once shook chandeliers. Tonight it rattles picture frames on the rec center wall. It feels better here. On the last refrain, the music thins to a whisper. Luther lets the children carry the melody alone. The room holds still for them, 1,000 breaths, on pause. When the cadence resolves, the auditio applause is less a blast than a blanket, warm, wrapping, long. Luther rises from the bench. He reaches into his pocket and takes out the bamboo pen. The wood catches a line of candlelight. He sets it on the piano lid like a relic returning home, and in a voice meant for the front row but somehow heard in the last, he says, "Our gifts don't need permission. They were always ours." Silence, then a swell. People stand not because protocol demands it, but because their knees won't let them sit. The little girl from the hotel is in the second row now. She lifts both arms as if to hug the stage. Her mother lets the tears come. Marcus squeezes Luther's shoulder. Curtis tips his hat. The children gather like magnets around the keys, chattering, asking when they can play again. "Tomorrow," Luther says. "And the day after." He turns to the crowd. "This isn't a concert," he tells them. "It's rehearsal for how we live." Outside, the night hums. Inside, the candles burn steady. People don't rush to leave. They linger, trading stories, swapping numbers, promising rides, promising lessons, promising to come back next week with cousins and casseroles. And the faceless voice that has walked with us from the first cruel laughter to this gentle light leaves one truth behind. Don't let anyone define your worth. Dreams can be buried, delayed, mocked, but the voice inside you is patient. It waits, it learns the notes, and when the time comes, it rises, louder than diamonds, stronger than doors, bright as a room full of candles, and it does not ask permission. Before we say goodbye tonight, let's pause together. What we witnessed wasn't just a janitor at a piano. It was proof that dignity cannot be erased, and gifts don't need permission to shine. Luther Harris reminded us that every note we carry, our stories, our pain, our hope, can become music if we choose to play it. His song wasn't for applause or for profit. It was for the little girl who believed in him, for the elder who thought she'd never hear her people's song in a ballroom, for a wife who handed him a bamboo pen and told him to write prayers in the air, and maybe it was for you too. So let me ask, where are you watching from? A quiet morning coffee? A long night searching for hope? Share it in the comments. We read everyone. If this story touched you, subscribe and stay with us. Not just for more stories, but to be part of a community that refuses to forget its own worth. Remember, your gift doesn't need permission. It was always yours. Until next time, take care, carry your song, and never let anyone silence it.